So do you ever feel like you're just really busy all the time, you're making loads of decisions, you're doing loads of things, but yet you're not really sure if you're actually moving forward and heading in the right direction? So that's how it feels when you've been sucked into the day-to-day, all day, every day. Your head down, working hard, but building in time to look up and look forward is essential to making sure you're still heading in the right direction. It may always seem that the strategic thinking time is what gets deprioritised. It's the thing that gets moved aside for something more urgent that's come in. But the reality is you do not want to wait until strategy becomes urgent. If strategy becomes urgent, then the chances are you are well off track. Hi, I'm Katherine at Life in the Third Lane, at the channel for charity and non-profit leaders. If you enjoy this video, please do like and subscribe. It makes a massive difference to how many people the YouTube algorithm decides to put this video in front of, and therefore how many people it can help. So let's start today with what strategic thinking is. Now, if you Google definition of strategic thinking, there are loads of different definitions out there, some more complicated than others. But for the purposes of today, think of strategic thinking as when you do your big picture thinking. What are our goals? Are we heading in the right direction to get there? It's when you look up from the day-to-day, you look forward to the future, you look outside your organisation to see what's happening in the environment that you're working in, and you also look inside your organisation so you understand what's happening there too. Then you pull all of those insights together and work out if your goals are still the right ones and how you're best going to be able to get there. So the one thing I want you to get from this video is that it's really, really important to set aside time on a regular basis for strategic thinking. And you might be asking why it's so important. Well, let me tell you a little story. Once upon a time, I was stupid enough to sign up for a half marathon, which seemed like a good idea at the time, but in hindsight was a terrible idea. However, I was not fit enough, and for the last few miles, I was just looking down at my feet and repeating to myself the mantra, just keep doing the next step, the next step, the next step. All I was doing was watching my feet take one step after another. Now, in that situation, I did make it to the end because there was loads of marshals there and there was a really clearly defined route. So without the marshals and the route, I could have ended up anywhere. I was not looking up, I had no idea where I was going. I was just focused on putting one foot in front of the other. And the same is true for your organisation. As the leader, you are the marshals. You are the people setting out the course. Without you, people will be focusing on their feet. They will be taking one step after another and they won't be thinking about where they're going. So strategic thinking time is when you're setting out the course, it's when you're looking up, it's when you're making sure that you're still heading in the right direction and that you're going to make sure that all of your people make it to the finish line. So how often do you need to put time aside to do your strategic thinking, and kind of how long do you need? Well, I think there's a framework that you can use which can be quite helpful just to give you an idea of roughly how long you need to have. So I would do 3 kind of levels of strategic thinking. So the first is a regular check-in. So probably monthly, you might want to set aside an hour or 2 to do this. And it's really where you look at where are we now? Are we heading in the right direction? So the first thing you want to do is get all your data together. So you need to understand how you're performing against your lag measures and your lead measures. And I've talked about these much more in this video here. So once you've got those, basically on a monthly basis, you want to check that you're heading in the right direction. So are you delivering against the lead measures? Are they moving the lag measures as you would hope them to be? If not, you might want to think about changing what you're doing. In this session, you might then want to ask yourself 4 key questions. So how are we doing versus our lead and lag measures? Are those tactics delivering the expected results? If we continue at the current rate in this direction, are we going to achieve our goals? And finally, what do we need to do the same or differently between now and the next review period to make sure that we're still on track? So I'd also then suggest you have a quarterly strategic review, and you probably want about half a day for this. In preparation for it, you want to pull together all the information that you're going to need. So you want the data from your monthly reviews because that will be really helpful to about how you're performing internally. But you'll also want to look outside and see if anything's really changed in your market. Is there anything that's massively changed the environment in which you're working? There might be political things, technological things, economic things, kind of the big changes that you need to be aware of. Then you want to think if has anything changed significantly internally? And this may be if you've lost key members of the team, or there's been just changes in the makeup of who's doing what or how people are performing. And the third thing is to look at your competitors or collaborators or comparators and say, are they doing anything different? Is there anything that we can learn from them? So basically, your main challenge for that strategic review on a quarterly basis is to go, do we need to make any changes to our approach based on this information that we've now got? If nothing's changed and your performance is proving that what you're doing is working, it may be that as part of this, you just decide to carry on doing exactly what you're doing. It may be that you need to make some changes. Then I would really recommend that you have an annual strategy day where you really focus on what you're going to do over the next year. There are 4 key areas you might want to be focusing on during this. So where are we now? This is your opportunity to look back over the last year, celebrate success, and also note where there are things that maybe didn't go as well as you might have hoped. It's also a great opportunity to look at your plans and your goals and go, are we still heading in the right direction? Is that still the future that we want to reach? Sometimes you might want to change your goals and change what you're aiming for because of changes that are happening either inside or outside of your organisation. Once you're clear that yes, you're still heading towards that ultimate goal, actually what's going to get in your way? What are the things you need to kind of think about that might stop you from getting there, so that you can come up with plans for how you can overcome those obstacles or avoid them. And then finally, looking and saying, actually, and what are we going to do this year? What are we going to actually do to deliver that? What do we need to start? What do we need to stop? What do we want to continue? I'd also strongly recommend that at the end of this day, it can be really tempting to leave after answering those questions and having that clarity of what you're going to do and where you're going. But I'd take it one step further and be really clear on what the actions are that are going to be taken off the back of it. So that might be a case of agreeing the phasing of activities across the year, and it's probably going to be making sure that you're really clear on who is responsible for taking each of these things forward. It can be really challenging if you leave one of these meetings, everyone's feeling inspired, but actually no one's 100% clear on what the next steps are. Now, I've talked about that annual planning day and kind of assumed that other people will be involved, but sometimes it will just be you, and that's absolutely fine too. I'd still suggest going through exactly the same process and asking yourself the same questions that you would if there were other people there. So what can you do to make sure that you get the absolute most out of this time that you're setting aside? So the key to successful strategic thinking is to really stay at the big picture level, so not to get drawn down into thinking about the tactics and the details. So this is much easier for some people than it is for other people, just based on their personalities, but it's absolutely a skill that can be learnt, and it's a skill that you can develop through practice. So one of the other things that you can do to make sure that you get the most out of this time is to create an environment that is beneficial to helping you focus at that big picture level. There are some things that you can do. So you might want to try going somewhere where there's no Wi-Fi or phone signal so that you can't be disturbed. You might want to get out of your usual working space and just go somewhere different for a change of scenery. I'd highly recommend that. You might also want to actually take no technology with you, just take a pen and a paper to write down the things that you're creating and thinking about, and moving away from using technology. You might want to think about bringing other people along who can surround you with the right thinking and the right energy, people who you trust, who you like to bounce these ideas off. You might want to get outside and enjoy nature and see if that brings some different thinking to you. One of the things that I find particularly useful is purposeful meditation, which is something that Cal Newport talks about in his book Deep Work. And this is when you actually do a kind of really deep thinking without writing anything down, without doing anything, but you purposely meditate on a problem. And I often do this when I'm going for a long walk, and it can be really helpful to just really focus my mind on that one thing that I need to sort out. So if there's a really challenging problem that you're coming across in your strategic thinking, or one of the changes that you're having to deal with, you're not really sure how to work with, actually taking some time and doing some purposeful meditation on it can be really helpful. I really hope that now you've seen this video, the next thing you're going to be doing is getting into your diary and blocking out your strategic thinking time for the year, and that you'll really protect that time because it is so important to the success of your organisation. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you have a fantastic week and keep on changing the world.